The meeting of the Revere Zoning Board of Appeals will now come to order. If we could rise, salute the flag. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sure that you and all of the members are aware of the passing of Paul Mazzoni, a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals for over 10 years. He passed away last month, and I think it is appropriate at this time to have a moment of silence in his memory. First item before the board this evening is application A1916. This was continued from the meeting of May 22nd. The application of Almadin Kalpu of 48 Conan Street, Revere, requesting a minimum parking space dimensional variance to enable the appellant to convert a single-family dwelling to a two-family dwelling at 48 Conan Street, Revere.
The applicant, please step up to the microphone. Press the button. State your name and address.
Almadin Kalpu, 48 Conan Street, Rivera.
Okay. Seeing that this is a continuation, are there any proponents? Anyone in favor? Hearing none, I'll close that side of the hearing. Any opponents? Anyone opposed? Hearing none, I'll close that side of the hearing. I did speak to the ward councilor, Charlie Patch, who does not seem to be in opposition. There was no opposition presented to us. So I would ask that if we can vote on this and have a roll call.
Question now comes in granting the relief requested by the appellant. Mr. Pacilli? Yes. Yes. Mr. D'Angelo? Yes. Yes. Mr. Lopes? Yes. Yes. Mr. Pelton? Yes. Yes. And Mr. Tucker?
Yes.
Yes, this is granted.
Thank you very much.
The next application before the board is application A1918, which is a special permit application of Andrew W. Tichat, 58 Malden Street, Malden, requesting a special permit pursuant to Title 17, 1740, 1740-040 of the revised ordinances of the City of Revere to enable the appellant to extend and alter an existing two-family non-conforming structure on Lot 5A at 630 Beach Street, Revere.
Good afternoon. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. Andrew William Chat, 58 Malden Street in Malden.
Do you have anything to add to the application, or it speaks for itself?
I believe the application does speak for itself. I'm requesting to to add essentially a bedroom to each of the units in the house in the two-family unit, and without changing the footprint of the house itself. In the back where there's an existing deck, I would like to build an addition in place of the deck. The slight change that would be an additional deck which would allow a rear egress to the house. Would have a small porch in the back of the house to allow a rear egress, otherwise we wouldn't have that.
Okay. Seeing that at the public hearing, I'll ask if there's any proponents. Anyone in favor? Hearing none, I'll close that side of the hearing. Any opponents? Anyone opposed? Hearing none, I'll close that side of the hearing. Any members? I do have a question. What was the additional room will be used for family members?
Yes, so right now I live in Malden. I live in Malden with my father who sits here. My family, because I got married, is moving out to do our own thing. It would essentially become my room, and the additional bedroom downstairs would help offset some of the cost of the construction because that unit would be rented.
Would be, pardon me?
Would be rented. So it's a two-family house. I'd be living in one unit. That would become my bigger bedroom. And the other unit, until if the family grows, it will be rented, just helps.
Okay. Thank you. We'll be voting, should we vote on each individual item? We'll ask for a roll call. Yes.
Question now comes on granting the relief requested by the appellant. Mr. Pacilli? Yes. Mr. D'Angelo? Yes. Mr. Lopes? Yes. Mr. Pelton? Yes. Mr. Tucker?
Yes.
Yes, this is granted. The next application before the board is application A1919. This is the application of Post Road Realty LLC, Fairfield, Connecticut, requesting a variance of the City of Revere zoning ordinance minimum side yard building setback between buildings, minimum parking requirements, maximum floor area ratio, to enable the appellant to construct a 12-story, 230 residential unit apartment and associated amenities, including a coffee shop and exercise facility on Lot 2 at 656 Ocean Avenue, Revere.
Good afternoon. Name and address for the record, please.
Good afternoon, board members. My name is Corey Rhodes. I'm an attorney with D'Ambrosio Brown, LLP, 14 Proctor Avenue in Revere. I represent Post Road Realty relative to its development of the final vacant parcel in the Wonderland Transit-Oriented Development Overlay District, better known as the WTOD. I adopt by reference our full petition as part of this presentation. With me today are Post Road's principal, Andy Montelli, the project's lead architect, Joel Bragman of BH+A, as well as the project's engineer, Katie Cruz of Hancock and Associates, and attorney Jerry D'Ambrosio. Post Road is really a marquee developer. They've recently completed the redevelopment of the Charleston Shoe Factory in Everett and the Pioneer, the old Harley-Davidson building in Everett. These are two projects that have been lauded by the city in Everett for their fit and finish and really kind of exceptional attention to detail and high quality. They're now looking at this prime location in Revere, right on Revere Beach. And Post Road is proposing a Keystone building to be the culmination of the Waterfront Square project. This specific site sits between Ocean 650 and the Vanguard to the north of Wonderland Station. It is the last parcel in the WTOD, and its development will mark the completion of Waterfront Square, which was originally envisioned by the city and the state almost 2 decades ago at this point. The proposed building is different from some of the prior construction in the area. It is going to be a 12-story building. It is highly and thoughtfully designed. It's steel, concrete, and glass. It is truly something that has a lot of focus on, as you can see in these renderings, to architectural detail and high-end finishes. It's going to be more attractive. It's going to be more beautiful. It's going to be more expensive to build as well. But it is a cut above its neighbors in design, detail, and function, and we justly believe it's going to be the gem of Revere Beach. As I mentioned, though there are specific benefits and details to this proposed building, this is not a new project. It is the conclusion of Waterfront Square, which was originally established under Mayor Ambrosino and the DCR back in 2001. This was expanded in 2003 to include the MBTA, and this led to the creation of documents between Mayor Ambrosino and the state, and a master development agreement with Eurovest, and a codification of the WTOD in 2010. Waterfront Square has led to the creation of the MBTA parking garage, which you probably know, which has 1,400 parking spaces, and the marquee pedestrian bridge, as well as development of 4 other vacant parcels that were underutilized properties in Revere. The development of these previously state-owned parcels has significantly increased the city's tax base and spurred significant economic activity in the city. So again, this is not a new project. It is really the fruition of this 2 decades of planning and design by the city and the state to redevelop underutilized state-owned properties and create a modern and vibrant transportation hub. The variance is being sought by Post Road for parking ratio, FAR, and side setbacks are minor and being requested to tailor fit this final project to the constraints of the property and cover some technical issues. First, parking for this property is a ratio of 1.03, which is in line with other recent developments in the area and fitting given this property's proximity to the T, the Wonderland Station. Additionally, given over 70% of the units are studio and one-bedroom units, the likelihood of families with multiple cars is exceedingly low. It is expected that many units will have no car at all, and the developer is going to tap into their own marketing network to specifically promote this property to young professionals who commute into Boston via the T, or Zipcar, or bike, or even Uber. Finally, and most importantly, there will be no resident parking on the street. And a parking space will not be a separate charge for these units, but will be included in a tenant's lease. For floor area ratio, as this is the last parcel in Waterfront Square, you can imagine it's a little bit of the last one to be chosen. It's the smallest, and it requires a higher density to make it more economically viable. This also allows the project to add the height and architectural features that make it unique in comparison to some of the other buildings on the beach. Additionally, as a whole, it appears that Waterfront Square was well below the square footage that was actually set aside for development in this area by nearly 300,000 square feet. As a result, this is more of a technical request, given that Waterfront Square is substantially smaller than was actually proposed. In terms of side setbacks, the final parcel has two issues. First, relative to the neighboring Vanguard property to the north, it was constructed very close to its southern property line. The Vanguard was built closer than any other building in the W. Todd. Under the ordinance, in the way it was written, this actually forces a greater setback on Post Road's property. They are forced to be unfairly conditioned by how their neighbor chose to build their building. And the second issue is due to changes to the Massachusetts Fire Code. In 2016, the code was changed to necessitate greater fire access to the rear of the building. And as such, my client had to create a large fire access lane down the north of the property, and that has been approved by the Revere Fire Department. Also, as an aside, this access way will become part of an easement to the city for access to the Eastern County ditch for ongoing maintenance and emergency access. In conclusion, these issues, these variances that we're questioning, could not have been foreseen at the creation of the W. Todd and Wonderland, the Waterfront Square. They've necessitated these requests, but they're really still of a general technical nature, or otherwise necessary to meet changes to state law like the fire code, or to deal with discrepancies in the ordinance like the proximity of the Vanguard property. These aspects could not have been foreseen when Waterfront Square was originally contemplated in 2001, and as such, the variances are justified here. This project has the support of the ward councilor, who's here today, and the city's administration. Additionally, the project has received a very favorable response from the Revere Beach Design Review Board, and Representative Rosalie Vincent, who sits on that board, was very pleased about how this was going to be different from the other buildings on the beach with its steel, concrete, and glass construction. This building, just to finish, is going to be a culmination, really, of these years of planning for Waterfront Square, and I wouldn't be surprised if you really don't see any other proposals coming in front of you in any recent time. It is appropriately designed for scale and scope, and we truly believe it's going to be the gem of the beach. We'd be happy to go over any questions that you might have.
Seeing that it's a public hearing, I would ask if there are any proponents, and I believe Mr. O'Brien. Bob O'Brien? I'll defer to the ward councilor. Oh, I didn't see Ira. You have the picture in front of you.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Ira Novoselsky, 53 D. Hone Street in Revere. I'm the Ward 2 counselor, and this piece of property is in my ward, being on that part of Ocean Ave, which I get to represent all the way to Revere Street. And I remember back in the 1950s when urban renewal came in, and all those homes down there, Baker Ave and Chester Ave, Chester Street, were all destroyed for urban renewal, and it was like that for almost 20 years. And when they first set up the TOD and the building and all the transfers of property so we can get our new police station and transferring so they can get a new bathhouse across the street next to the barracks, police barracks, which is being built now. And this piece of property, the final piece that was stated, is the current property for, which is housing the DCR maintenance yard. And it's also going to include a new bathhouse for the public. So it's going to be a combined unit across the street. Now, it was mentioned about the FAR, the floor area ratio. They're making it larger than some of the other buildings, and the units won't be 300 square feet. Micro units, they would be good size units. The setbacks, as was mentioned, on the side setback on the Vanguard property, that the problem there was, the fire department needs X amount of space between buildings. And the Vanguard property was not built properly. And they actually, when you look at it, they overstepped their bounds by 10 feet. And it was supposed to be a total of 25 feet. So now we have to adjust for these folks to make this, as you can see, this premier property, as they're calling it, and it's beautiful. The next item was on the rear yard, which was, again, a fire department issue. They have to move it back a little and then adjust a little more to allow a fire engine to get back there. And so it's a combination of that side yard and the rear yard that would make things appropriate and make it work. Again, there's no charge for parking. It's part of the lease for everybody. And that would stop, it would help the potential parking on Ocean Avenue, which takes away from the public use. And so hopefully that won't happen. And then I have had discussions with Mr. Montelli and about some of the design, which I didn't like to see a straight up building. And that's why I asked him to do some setbacks, and he did that, and it's a beautiful building. I've been to his properties in Everett. They're built outstanding, and they are luxurious, may I say. And I think that's what you're going to see here, a luxurious property. On the traffic control, again, I did discuss line markings. There's a very big concern about some of the neighbors that live on Ocean Avenue a little further down, that the lanes are reduced, and some people didn't see the line markings on going north and south. So as I did with 500 Ocean Ave, I asked them to reline and adjust through the DCR traffic folks. So, and I believe we're going to do Jersey barriers with a sidewalk to protect the folks coming from 650 to go to the T. And it'll only be out one lane, at least for most of the time. I don't know about the very beginning, but I would say that, I'm in favor of this, and I think it would be a outstanding add-on to the finalization of the Wonderland Transit-Orient Development. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Bob O'Brien. I live at 10 Ocean Avenue in Revere. I'm Director of Economic Development for the City of Revere. And I stand before you on behalf of the mayor in support of ZBA approval of the zoning variance petitions before you. In light of Councilor Rhodes' very excellent presentation, as well as the comments of Councilor Novoselsky, I will not take time to go through all of the details of a letter which we have submitted in support of our position, but I will reemphasize the importance of this being the final development project in a waterfront square development plan that dates back at least to Mayor Ambrosino and has been supported by every mayor and city council since that time, including the current mayor and the Economic Development Department. I think the petitions before you are both reasonable and appropriate. I think the justification for them has already been outlined by others before me. I would note, however, that in our letter, we outline a series of 5 conditions that are contingent on our support for the parking variance. These are the same conditions that we advocate in all cases of parking variance, and we would ask you to make them conditions of the ZBA approval for that particular element. I would just close by commending the quality of the development team. They have been extremely responsive to the concerns of all of the elected and appointed officials with whom they've dealt. They've been very forthcoming with the community, most recently speaking at a Ward 2 community meeting that included all of the developments on Ocean Avenue. And they have also met with the Revere Beach Design Review Board to great acclaim. So I would say they are an example of precisely the kind of developer that Revere wants. Their work in Everett is exemplary, and all of those who have toured those facilities, most recently at the Pioneer, have been universally impressed. And they are bringing to Revere at least that quality of design and amenity space, and perhaps even to exceed that. So for all of those reasons, we join the ward councilor in urging your support of these petitions. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to personally thank you for taking all my phone calls, Bob, and also for the detailed conditions that you're providing us.
Thank you very much. John R. Correggio, 30 Grace Road, Revere, former city councilor, a retired fire lieutenant. This is basically, as the attorney says, a continuation of Waterfront Square, which I was on the council. My concern right now is traffic and parking, to make sure they take care of their own parking and not have any off-street parking. And the other thing is about the units. I'd like to see conditions with that, with the parking, more of the one-unit apartments. That way we don't have a lot of children coming in because we don't have the schools to provide that. And the other thing is the type of construction, steel and concrete, which I like to see. Also, I want to see utilized union labor, 100% union labor, and Revere residents utilized on the project. And those are the questions, and I'd like to see those conditions put in if the attorney could work that out. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other proponents?
Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the board. My name's Stephen Burke. I'm a local 7 iron worker. My business agent couldn't be here because we have a union meeting tonight. We have over 24 members that live in Saugus, women and men that live in Saugus. In Revere. We're in the business of putting people to work. You know, obviously we rise in favor of this. We would like to see a PLA on the project. You know, we come in on time, we do our work professionally, and that's basically all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other proponents?
Hello, my name is Andrew Fano. I live down the street at 540 Revere Beach Boulevard. I think this project looks fantastic. I'm excited to see it go up. I think the proximity to the T and the Blue Line is great for people like myself who commute into the city every day. I think people like myself, you're not going to have a problem with parking. Most people who live here with the proximity to the T, they won't need cars. They'll be able to commute into work. And I look forward to seeing this property go up, and I think it'll be a great addition to the beach.
Thank you. Any other proponents?
Philip Russo, 175 Ridge Road. I have a couple of questions. Real simple one. First, back on safety. Do we have a fire truck that can handle this building at this height and something that can get around the building, God forbid? Secondly, what I'd like to ask is the building in size for the units itself. The proposed units, Are they two bedrooms? Are they single bedrooms? What do we have? Our infrastructure can only handle so much. I know it was mentioned before me, but we have to be prepared for this. And we've heard before in the past that people are going to use zip cars, and they're going to use the T and transportation, and then we're overwhelmed with vehicles. And we have people that are complaining about the traffic. We have to take all this into consideration. I know we've done this before in the past, and we've said, okay, this is okay, that's not okay. But nothing is
Excuse me, you're
happening.
up as a proponent, you realize that, right?
I am.
Okay.
I'm for it.
All right.
But the thing is these are the things that I want put in, because they have to be considered better. I love the idea of what's going on about this building. I love where it's going, the look of the building, but we need parking for each unit. These are things that have to be put in there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Hearing none, I'll close that side of the hearing. Any opponents? Hearing none, I'll close that side of the hearing. Do any members wish to have questions? Just for clarification, there has been an order of conditions put in by Mr. O'Brien for Community Development and the administration. So the cost of parking, it has to be included in the tenant's lease, and that there would be no parking on the street. It would be part of the lease that they would be inside. Parking will be limited to lease to the 238 parking spaces approved for this project. There will be bicycle options, a car sharing option, transportation management plan will be developed. So there are the stipulations that have been put in as a condition that we will vote on and attach to anything that we vote on this evening. Hearing that there's no opponents, I'd ask for a roll call.
Question comes on granting the relief requested by the appellant, subject to the letter submitted by the Director of Economic Development, which will be attached to the decision and made conditions of the variance. Mr. Bacilli? Yes. Yes. Mr. D'Angelo? Yes. Mr. Lopes? Yes. Mr. Pelton? Yes. Yes. Mr. Tucker?
Yes.
Yes, this is granted, subject to the conditions.
The last calendar item on our agenda, there's a request to withdraw. I would like to have a motion on the floor to withdraw. Is there a second?
This is
Roll call.
This is a request to leave to withdraw without prejudice. Mr. Bacilli? Yes. Mr. D'Angelo? Yes. Mr. Lopes? Yes. Mr. Pelton? Yes. Mr. Tucker?
Yes.
Yes. This is granted leave to withdraw without prejudice. The only other item is the notification that the legal challenge against the Zoning Board of Appeals in the matter of A1730 on this is notice to the board that the lawsuit against the Zoning Board of Appeals on the project at 7 Reservoir, on Yeaman Street has been dismissed by agreement of the parties. No further business.
No further business. Thank you and have a good evening.